Hi everyone, happy Friday. Pat here. Welcome to a Friday market outlook. Don't tend to do these, but it was planned this week, and I think it's a pretty good time to talk about the market a little bit and go over my thoughts since we've had, what looks like quite a bearish week in terms of price action, at least for altcoins. Overall, we have been expecting this. I discussed this over the past few weeks that I've been waiting for much lower on altcoins to get filled on a bunch of things. Now we are starting to see these areas get filled, but the original premise of the idea or a move down on Bitcoin was that we would get a flush, and that would be the scenario that I would like to bid, right? These limits originally on the likes of SPX, these were set 21% lower. The likes of Bonk as well, which has not yet been filled, but this was set 45% off the highs. And as we do move into these regions, it is a place that we want to be looking for a reversal, but overall I'm not that happy with the way we've traded into these areas. These sort of limits I was originally looking at getting filled on a spike into there, and the slow sort of bleedy selling into this area is not something I necessarily like bidding. So even though we have pulled into regions where now I'm interested in and I've been filled on some of these spot buys, I've moved my stop flat just in the event that we were to roll again. I'm covered on that front, but I'm happy to hold these with my stop on entry now, and the potential of, for SPX, for example, I got filled at 159 and my stop is on entry. But overall, I kind of want to see some sort of shift in price action, right? And like a reclaim for SPX, and maybe we can consider the scenario that it's bottomed here. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure that altcoins will continue to bleed and chop for August, which I will sort of cover my thoughts now. So market is reacting quite poorly at the moment, just based on the fact that the dollar has been strong over the past week and a half. Let's say 2 weeks, the dollar has been strong, and usually the market reacts, you could say, late to this dollar strength. A lot of the time you'll find that the market won't react initially to the dollar strength, but over time will sort of trail that, and equally will trail the dollar weakness. So this sort of move down we're seeing is just the back end of the dollar strength that we've seen, but I'm seeing a lot of dollar bull posting at the moment. But for now, sort of my plan remains the same, that as long as the $99 to $100 region on the dollar continues to act as resistance, I think we continue to trade lower on the dollar, back down towards October, November, December, which is where I think the cycle on Bitcoin will top necessarily earliest, right? I've been vocal on that a lot, but I don't think the cycle is topped. I think we will continue to trade higher on Bitcoin into October, November, December, and we will time this with a potential long-term dollar bottom into Q4. So yeah, looking for the dollar to roll, to be honest, and then see a similar thing to what we've done in prior cycles where, we've kind of had this minor bounce from the dollar and then it went on to roll, and we can see that sort of Bitcoin went on to do its final push up, and again here, final push up. And I think we could see a similar thing for the dollar very soon, right? That it sort of rejects and rolls and eventually finds some sort of bottom before maybe bouncing again in Q4, and then we can consider a very toppy scenario for Bitcoin. But for now, the plan remains the same. We just have to be careful on the fact that if the dollar does reclaim 99, 100, then maybe we will have to shift our plan. But again, we will react to that as it unfolds. So not only do we have the dominant strength, we have we have the dominant strength, but not only do we have the DXY and the dollar strength, we have the dominant strength, right? The Bitcoin dominant strength. And this is something I have also talked about, and I said that this was an area to be cautious into. The BTC chart was moving into support and looking at retesting this, over 1,000-day trend, right? We broke from the original 1,000-day trend, and now we're sort of retesting that lower weekly 1,000-day trend, which stems all the way back in November 2022. And for altcoins to really go on this so-called alt season that everyone's looking for, we need to see a break underneath 60%, which I don't think is going to come just yet, not until we've seen a good bounce from Bitcoin. And maybe we can see a similar scenario to what we done back in sort of December and January 2021, where we broke down from the first trend to retest the second trend. We got a spike up, which then involved that spike from dominance into Jan 2021, and then that's where, you know, the market really went quite crazy. And I think that we can still be playing out a similar scenario where the dominance bounces and eventually rolls, and we see a huge move from altcoins later down the line into Q4. So looking at Bitcoin now, it's pretty apparent that we have seen or are starting to see the cracks of summer price action, right? The July move kind of threw people off a little bit. I don't think many people really expected to break out in July, but overall, you know, we are now seeing this summer price action, the price action we saw in summer last year, you know, topped in sort of July and chopped until August, September, where we eventually legged up again. I could see a similar scenario happening again with dominance rising and altcoins bleeding. I think being cautious and sort of risk off altcoins for the time being is the best case, as I have been saying for a while. Just look at day trading altcoins and look at swinging some alts later down the line when something really shifts. And right now we're waiting to see that big shift, right? We've got the pullback, but overall I'm not too happy with the way we've pulled back, and I think best scenario right now would be to continue to chop until August, September. We fill spot on Bitcoin, that as we have been doing, continue to buy in spot, continue to DCA in spot, and look at selling towards Q4 onwards. Overall, I think 113 looks like a good place to be like a buyer on Bitcoin, or like at least to look for a bounce. I think over time 113 can be a nice bottom, and we sort of, like I said, maybe chop. Maybe this turns into more of a range rather than a flag. Overall, I sort of see us doing, you know, a chop into August, September now before eventually rallying into Q4. And let's maybe consider waiting until the end of August, or like I said, for a big shift from BTC and ETH before we consider like long-term swing spot positions, right? Okay, now we're on topic of ETH. Let's talk about ETH, because you know, right now it continues to look fine. We are trading into that, back into that 2024 2021 value area high, which for me is a very important place to hold. I think as long as ETH can continue to chop and hold above here and maybe range, we can see that breakout towards like 4K plus towards the end of summer. One thing I don't want to see is a deviation back under 3,500, 3,600, and not necessarily that I don't want to see it. In terms of like bullish price action, that's what you wouldn't want to see, is that we deviate back under 3,500, because there's a good chance we're going to backfill a lot of this imbalance in the move back down to like 3,100, even as low as 3K. So from like a bullish standpoint, it makes sense that ETH sort of consolidates above here, just as it has done the prior 3 times, right? 1, 2, 3. ETH sort of broke that range, consolidated, and eventually broke down, broke that range, consolidated, eventually broke down, broke that range, consolidated, eventually broke down. So ideally this time, right, we break the range, we consolidate, we form a new range, and we eventually break up, right? If we don't, then that's fine. We look at buying back down towards 3,100, but until we see like a big shift in ETH, I don't really have interest in buying into spot. Just mostly focusing on Bitcoin for now. Obviously with dominance strong as well, Bitcoin is just going to continue to lead the market and choose which direction we start trading in. So overall, my thoughts, like roughly, I don't really have too much to say here, but just continue to trade altcoins daily. Maybe look at the likes of something like Mudeng for a bearish retest and short. I think something like this could definitely continue to bleed out through summer. Like look at maybe shorting a bearish retest on Mudeng, right? A lot of these sort of altcoins fail to put in a reclaim, which is quite a bearish sign. Like after breaking down, when they fail to put in a reclaim. So from here, we could potentially be looking at maybe a bounce and short Mudeng back down to maybe like new lows, new summer lows, which could be nice. Look for these sort of similar setups, right? There's going to be trades to take on both sides right now, like longs and short. I think having quite a neutral bias is probably the best way to be and look at the market, and not be a hero and try and like death spiral yourself into buying into loads of altcoin spot bags. Like even though we are seeing some really nice pullbacks, right? Like SPX now 30% off the highs, which historically in bull markets is a pretty good buying opportunity. Again, like altcoin down 40% from the highs, but this is a pretty good like indication that we are in a summer range. Like despite what we've seen from price action, you know, we've been ranging on Filecoin basically since back in April, right? And any move up we've got is just full retrace, right? Moved up, full retrace, moved up, full retrace. And I think just consider until something big shifts in the market that will probably continue to chop or even like bleed out on a lot of these altcoins. So don't marry positions just yet. just try and day trade, take what you can out of the market, and don't be a hero. You know, if ETH does lose this 3,500 region, like I said, it's going to go back down towards 3K, but for now, I expect just sort of some sort of chop and range within this region, maybe a third drive into the high at some point. Like if Bitcoin gets a bounce into like 113 and drives back towards like 120s, then maybe we could see ETH go for that like sort of like 3 drive, and that could also be a really nice short setup to take. Yeah, August, I don't have massive hopes for August to be like a hugely bullish month. Like historically, it's been pretty poor returns for Bitcoin. I think like the second or third worst returns month in historically for Bitcoin. So I don't expect August to be fantastic, but I'll continue to buy my Bitcoin spot. And if I think there's anything worth mentioning, then you can follow me on Twitter and check out the Discord. I'm posting my thoughts there daily. This is kind of just to wrap the week up on my thoughts, and you know, a lot has not necessarily changed in my thoughts, but I was looking for a move down like this to fill a spot on alts, but right now I'm just not convinced to be a buyer. I'm kind of convinced that we are just now in summer chop, and summer chop has never been a good opportunity to be a buyer, at least looking at buying towards the back end of summer. Q4 will be great. That's always been my plan this whole year, was that the market will top no later than October into Q4, and I think Bitcoin can go onto this extra bullish rally towards the end of the year, right? It's just another hiccup in the road, and we're not new to this sort of like slow bleed from Bitcoin, right? It's happened over and over again, and Bitcoin will prevail and it will trade much higher. Just let's be a little bit cautious of the dollar and how it trades into this $99-$100 region. I will see you guys next week, Tuesday market review. Everyone have a good weekend, and check out the socials in the link below. You guys.